This meeting will be conducted electronically and will be broadcast on CTN cable channel 16, AT&T channel 99, and online at a2gov.org/watchctn. Aaron, will you do the roll call?
Yes. Commissioner Berkowitz. Absent. Commissioner Brown.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Commissioner Colvin Garcia.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Cornell.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Chair Curtis.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Commissioner Dale.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Vice Chair Graham.
Here, Ann Arbor.
Commissioner Hans. Commissioner Levin said he would be absent today. Councilmember Malik.
Here and just arriving home, and we'll be on camera in about 2 minutes in Ann Arbor.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Mitchell.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Commissioner Nedrich.
Here.
Commissioner Overpeck will be absent, as will Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Berkowitz. Is maybe with us, but on mute if you're talking. Okay, maybe we'll check in a little later. That's a quorum.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody want to make changes to the agenda? If not, is there a motion to approve it? And a second by Steve, seconded by Anya, Commissioner Dale, and okay, is there a vote to approve the agenda?
Okay.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Does anybody want to make changes to the meeting minutes from last month? Is there a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Seconded by Commissioner Mitchell. Okay, all in favor, let's vote for approval of the minutes. Okay,
Aye.
that looks good.
Aye.
So next is public comment. We allow 3 minutes per speaker. We don't respond at the moment to speakers, but we do appreciate taking the time to comment. Please call 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 988-7619-2402. To raise your hand, press 9. To unmute, press *6. City staff will select callers who have raised their hand by using the last 3 digits of your phone number. When speaking, please move to a quiet area and state your name and address at the beginning of your comments. Aaron, do we have someone?
Yes, we have one caller. Caller 134, you can unmute.
Thank you, Aaron and Chair Curtis. This is Ken Garber, 28 Haverhill Court. I look forward to Ms. Ebling's presentation on the 2024 greenhouse gas inventory. Putting this together every year is a lot of work. That includes arm twisting the various reporting sources so they disclose the data. Then there's the problem of making the disparate sources of information compatible and converting those varied statistics to emissions and putting together the unified information. So Ms. Ebling deserves a lot of credit. I don't want to preempt the presentation, but this is my one opportunity, so I guess I will somewhat. While the inventory shows a 9% reduction in emissions over 2023, which is encouraging, it also raises some questions. Commercial building emissions are down 32% in a single year. This begs explanation. There have not, to my knowledge, been many building conversions from gas to electric over the last year. It's not due to the benchmarking ordinances, which is only about reporting emissions, not mitigating them. I understand that MPSC aggregation standards for the DTE data that we depend on may have changed. Could this 32% drop, excuse me, could it be a data anomaly of some kind? Might it partly reflect the weather, since we basically didn't have winter in early 2024? So before we take credit for the 9% overall reduction, let's be sure the result is real in the sense that it actually reflects our actions in transitioning from fossil fuels to renewables in buildings. We face new hurdles going forward. Several massive new buildings that burn gas for heat recently opened. For example, the Sartorius Industrial Bioprocess and Research Complex on Research Park Drive, the Legacy Apartments on East Washington, and others. And their emissions will be reflected for the first time in next year's inventory. Also note that transportation emissions continue to go up. That's not just commuters. Local transportation emissions are the highest they've been since 2017. My last question is about Scope 3 emissions, which are supply chain emissions and personal consumption. They're not part of the ICLEI protocol, I know, but the U of M is scheduled to release methodology for tracking Scope 3 emissions by the end of this year. And I'm curious whether OSI plans to do the same, to make some effort. There's evidence that Scope 3 emissions are a relatively large part of our overall emissions, maybe the largest, and I'd be eager to know what progress they're making towards eventually measuring them.
You have 15
Thanks.
seconds left.
Anyway, I look forward to the presentation. Thanks for considering my questions. And again, thanks to Ms. Ebling for putting the inventory together and presenting it to us.
Thank you.
Thank you. No more callers.
Okay. So I think next on the agenda is our presentation from Carissa Ebling.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna get my screen shared here. Sorry, give me 1 second. All right, can you all see my screen? Great.
It's on your web tab.
Really? Okay. Sorry. There, is that better?
Much better.
Yep.
Awesome. Sorry about that. Thank you guys so much for having me join today. Like Erin said, my name's Carissa Ebling. I am an energy coordinator for the City of Ann Arbor's Office of Sustainability and Innovations. I manage OSI's metrics tracking and do our annual greenhouse gas inventory. And today I'm going to be going over our 2024 community-wide greenhouse gas inventory. I'm also going to do my best to answer the questions that the caller called in about as I go through this presentation. So starting off with a little bit of background on what a community-wide greenhouse gas inventory is. So a community-wide greenhouse gas inventory quantifies a community's greenhouse gas emissions and their associated sources. There are other types of greenhouse gas inventories that companies do and also that we do. We do our own municipal greenhouse gas inventory that just looks at the city's operations and the emissions associated with those. But the greenhouse gas inventory that I'm talking about today is a community-wide greenhouse gas inventory that looks at greenhouse gas emissions from our entire community. Our greenhouse gas inventory is broken out into 3 main sectors: the building sector, the transportation sector, and the waste sector. Within the building sector, we break emissions out into 3 main categories: institutional buildings, which in our case is just the University of Michigan; residential buildings, which includes all homes, and then also multifamily buildings up to 3 units; And then commercial buildings, which includes all commercial buildings and businesses and multifamily buildings with 4 or more units. It also includes public buildings, so the city of Ann Arbor is included in commercial building data, and also Ann Arbor Public Schools. And then for transportation, we break our emissions out into 2 different categories. Local transportation, which is transportation taken within the city's boundary, and then commuting. Commuting is essentially trips that either start or end in Ann Arbor. And then for waste, we break our emissions out into 2 different categories: solid waste generated by our community and wastewater. So a little bit more background on Ann Arbor's specific inventory. It is estimated annually. It's based on aggregated, scaled, and modeled data, which means there's inherently a little bit of error, but we do try to do our best to make sure that we're getting the most up-to-date and accurate data sources. It's calculated using the ICLEI US Community Greenhouse Gas Protocol. This is a protocol that's used nationally and internationally, and allows inventories to easily be compared from community to community because we're all using the same methodology. And then it measures emissions from 3 different greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, and methane.
Excuse me. Did you want to show us your slides? Because I'm seeing us as participants.
Oh, are you
I'm-
not seeing slides?
I'm seeing the slides, Rita.
You are seeing
Um,
the slides? I'm
Yeah,
not.
look up on the top of the bar. You might be
Gosh.
seeing, you can click between 2 different things there. Are you seeing the webinar or screen?
I'm seeing gallery. Let me try this. Okay, you should continue. I'll figure it out.
No, thank you for checking. I was having a lot of trouble sharing my screen, so I appreciate that. Definitely wouldn't want to keep going without sharing my slides. But every year we complete 2 different inventories: our simple inventory and our expanded inventory. Our simple inventory covers less emission sources, but it goes back to the year 2000. So essentially it only covers emission sources that were available at that time. And then our expanded inventory only goes back to the year 2015, but it includes additional emission sources that weren't available in 2000. So we'll be going over results for both of those today. So these are the results for our simple inventory. This breaks our simple inventory out by sector. So you can see on the right, emissions are broken out by waste, local transportation, institutional buildings, commercial buildings, and residential buildings. Since 2000, we've seen a 35% drop in emissions. Another thing that's interesting to see is that in 2020, we saw a pretty big dip in emissions due to the pandemic. And then from 2020 to 2022, we see emissions increase as we're recovering from the pandemic. And then over the last couple of years, we've seen emissions go down. This chart shows the sectors associated with our emissions reductions since 2000. So emissions from commercial and institutional buildings have decreased the most significantly, and then residential and local transportation emissions have decreased pretty significantly as well. This graph shows our expanded inventory trends. So like I said, our expanded inventory only goes back to the year 2015, but it does include some additional emission sources. So you can see on the right, wastewater is added as an emission source, also commuting and upstream emissions. So we do have those additional emission sources in our expanded inventory. But you can see a pretty similar trend as with our simple inventory, with a big decrease since 2015. And then again, that drop in 2020 due to the pandemic, and emissions going down over the last couple of years. Diving into a little bit more detail on our emissions, this breaks our 2024 emissions out by sector. This is pretty consistent with emissions breakdowns that we've seen in the past, with about 2/3 of our emissions coming from buildings and about 1/3 coming from transportation. Within the building sector, we saw 28% of our emissions coming from institutional buildings, 19% from residential, and 14% from commercial. And then within the transportation sector, we saw 21% of our emissions coming from that local in-boundary transportation and 14% coming from commuting. And then we have a pretty small amount of our emissions that comes from solid waste and wastewater. It was about 2% in 2024. This graph breaks our emissions out by source. So in Ann Arbor, we have a pretty even distribution of our emissions between gasoline and diesel fuel, natural gas, and electricity, with slightly more emissions in the gasoline/diesel fuel and electricity categories for sources. And then finally, we've also seen our emissions per capita drop. So despite our population increasing since 2015, we've been seeing our emissions go down. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about our goals and the recent changes we've been seeing and what might be attributed to those changes. So this graph shows our expanded inventory trend with a projection line to our 2030 goal. And that's shown in blue. And then just below it, shown in green, is another projection line that includes renewable energy credits that are purchased by the University of Michigan and Ann Arbor Public Schools, as well as residential and commercial My Green Power purchases, which is why that line is shifted down slightly. But based on the ether line, you can see that we've been increasing the rate of emissions reduction since 2022 and are getting close to reaching that rate needed to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030, which is great to see. And we expect in the coming years to see quite a few of our other programs, including the SEU, ramp up and continue to bring down emissions and kind of increase the slope of that line. And then in terms of changes from 2023 to 2024, the most significant change that we saw was in the building sector. We saw a 32% drop in our commercial building emissions, a 13% drop in residential building emissions, and a 6% drop in institutional building emissions. Our transportation emissions actually increased 6%, but a note that we do not yet have updated transportation data because the source that we use for that data hasn't come out with 2024 data yet. But as soon as we do get that data, we'll be updating our inventory. And then the waste sector also saw a 12% drop. But again, waste is such a small percentage of our greenhouse gas inventory that it doesn't have too much of an effect. In terms of what might be attributed to these recent changes, a few different things are at play. For the commercial side of things, commercial programs like our benchmarking program, which incentivizes energy efficiency, saw a big increase in compliance in 2024. And there were also some federal incentives available for commercial buildings in 2024. In the residential sector, quite a few of our residential programs, like our rebate program, the Home Energy Advisor, and Solarize, were going strong in 2024. The University of Michigan has also been ramping up its sustainability efforts, and the percentage of renewables in Ann Arbor has been increasing over the last few years. Many of our programs are still in their early stages, so we expect to see reductions continue to ramp up in future years. It's also important to note that our emissions estimates are based on available data, due in part to recent changes in data aggregation standards set by the Michigan Public Service Commission to protect data privacy. The amount of building energy data that we receive from DTE may not always be consistent. So we're currently working with DTE to improve the process of receiving data and make sure that we are getting consistent and accurate data from year to year. With that, jumping a little bit more into some details on the renewables side of things. This is a chart that breaks out DTE's fuel mix with renewable energy in that green bar at the top. So from 2023 to 2024, the percentage of DTE's energy produced from renewables went up just under 1%, which isn't that much. But while we haven't seen a huge increase in DTE's renewable energy, we have seen a pretty big increase in Ann Arbor's renewable energy portfolio overall. Since 2019, we've seen a 17% increase in renewable energy in Ann Arbor, and we now have 32% of our energy coming from renewables. DTE is also required by the state to have 50% of their energy coming from renewables by 2030. And that coupled with programs like our SEU means that we expect the percentage of energy in Ann Arbor coming from renewables to really ramp up in future years. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about is our OSI metrics dashboard. This dashboard showcases progress towards our A20 goals and breaks metrics out by each of our strategy areas in A20. I put a link to the dashboard here, and I'll go ahead and click on it so we can kind of look through it together. Hopefully this works as I share my screen. Are you seeing it? Or are you still seeing slides?
Those slides.
Okay. 1 second. Sorry. All right. How about now?
Yep.
Yep, we can see the dashboard.
Okay. So this is our OSI metrics dashboard. There are a few different tabs here at the top. This first tab, the introduction tab, just kind of goes over what the OSI dashboard is, how to use it, and how to interpret data. This next tab breaks down our greenhouse gas inventory and goes over a lot of what I just went over in this presentation. So if you want to take a deeper dive into our greenhouse gas inventory and see our emissions broken out by sector, source, and subsector, this is a really great resource for that. And then these next few tabs just showcase the metrics in each of our 7 different strategy areas. So if you want to explore how we're doing in terms of energy efficiency, you can take a look at this tab, which is currently having an error for some reason. But you can take a look at these different tabs and see metrics associated with those goals. And generally on these charts, we'll have a green dashed line that represents our A20 goal, so you can see how we're making progress towards our goals. So this is a really great resource to check out if you want to take a deeper dive into Ann Arbor's greenhouse gas metrics. But yeah, with that, that was all I had. But happy to open it up for any questions that you guys have on either our dashboard or our inventory.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Ebling. I'll take some time and look over, the dashboard, the dashboard before I ask any more like, detailed questions. But first thing the first question I have is, I'd be curious what the error bars are in all of these numbers. Because I know there's a combination of modeling and other things going on here, but I find it difficult to make any judgments if there's no error bars there to see,
Mhm.
What's certain and what isn't.
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's kind of difficult to assess error in our different data sources, particularly with DTE's data. So we don't tend to include error bars, but we do try to do our best to get the most accurate data that we can.
Well, I mean, in that regard, I mean, I also flagged this increase in this 33% or so decrease in commercial over the last year. And to me, this speaks to that issue here if the data is coming from DTE, because I mean, I would presume that DTE, you know, through its billing, I mean, they know how much gas was delivered in the main, right? In the main pipeline supplies, and they know how much gas they billed each user. So presumably it wouldn't be too hard to segregate all these, you know, to just aggregate all these pretty simply.
Yeah,
And once you've got, you know, the spreadsheet and then once you got the database and the, you know, and the formula plugged in. So
yeah,
it's puzzling to me why DT isn't doing a better job at this.
yeah. And like you were saying, what DTE does when they provide data to us is they aggregate that data. So we'll get essentially one number for each sector, and the energy usage in those sectors. So DTE, when it's providing that aggregated data, has to follow standards set by the Michigan Public Service Commission, um, and that can sometimes lead to certain data being left out. We're not really sure if that is the case, which is why we're working through um, determining that with DTE and making sure that we are getting consistent and accurate data.
Yeah, if it's aggregated, it's hard to tell why there's any
Yeah,
privacy concerns,
exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
Okay. So the MPSC has some, if you could point us to that document that states what the Michigan Public Service Commission's regulations are around data
Yeah.
aggregation, that would be helpful, I think, to
Yeah,
me.
I can also talk through that a little bit. So with their recent changes for commercial data, they have a rule called the 1515 rule. And essentially what that says is that um, at least 15 different customers have to be included in a data set, and no one customer can make up more than 15% of the data provided. And that also applies to the residential sector. Um, and then for the institutional sector, they have a slightly less stringent rule where at least 4 institutional buildings have to be included in a data set, and industrial buildings have to be included in a data set, and no more than, one building can't make up more than 50% of the energy usage or the data provided. Um, so those are the standards set by the MPSC. I can send more information on that though, for sure.
Okay, thank you. And just a follow-up question. I mean, it should also be easy to figure out the fugitive emissions citywide, you know, if they have this data about how much gas went in and how much they're billing that's going through the meters.
Yeah, we actually do include fugitive emissions in our inventory, local fugitive emissions. That's included in that upstream emissions category in our inventory. So it's pretty small percentage, but it is included.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I've got a couple of questions. At the beginning of the presentation, you showed some nice trend lines going to 2030. How's the energy usage is dropping or would drop? You talked about how DTE is changing their fuel mix in the SEU. Are there
Mhm.
other initiatives that are going to be the city's going to need to achieve that goal, or are those two alone going to do it?
Yeah, so it is mainly the SEU and DTE reaching that 50% renewable energy goal by 2030. But we do also have programs like Solarize that are increasing the amount of solar on residential homes. But we do expect the impact of the SEU to be pretty substantial.
Okay, thanks. Commissioner Nedrich?
Hi, thank you. That was really interesting. I guess I was kind of nerding out and wondering if the city had ever looked at installing like eddy flux towers to sort of capture the net greenhouse gas movement from the city. I've seen those applied in like research contexts, and it's very helpful and could help like fact check the model of, you know, what the net emissions are.
I honestly haven't heard of that before. Could you talk a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah. Well, I'm not an expert. It's some type, it's a sensor that can measure gas emissions, like from the atmosphere.
Mhm.
So, you know, you'd install like maybe 3 of them throughout the city, and then each year you could tabulate like the net flux in and out just from like atmospheric. So just kind of like measuring the bulk, like CO2. You can measure other greenhouse gases too, like nitrous oxide, and sort of trend track it over time.
Interesting. Yeah, that isn't something that I've looked into. We do have air quality sensors around the city that look at you know, gases that are associated with air quality, but nothing that looks at CO2 or anything like that. I would
Okay.
think it would be a little bit difficult to quantify, you know, exactly how many greenhouse gas emissions are coming in and out of the city with a sensor. But that isn't something that I've looked into.
Okay. I can send you some papers. Yeah, I've seen them used in wetlands. I'm a wetland scientist, so it's really dorky. But I guess another question I had for you is on, you know, there's been a lot of cuts in federal funding, and I guess I was wondering if any of our 820 programs are supported by federal funding, if we're seeing any cuts of that. And then a larger question of like, do we have other funding needs, and what would the top of your list be in terms of like, you know, how do we reach this goal? How can we get more support to the team?
Yeah. So as a local government, we're lucky to be relatively unaffected by federal funding cuts, especially with things like the millage in place that allow us to get funding through that. Um, so we don't expect to see too much of an impact, and we are working through areas where we might see impacts, like um, you know, funding for residential home improvements. We're kind of subsidizing that with our own rebate programs. Um, but we don't expect to see too much of a hit from federal changes.
Okay, is there a project that you're very interested in funding but can't? I know there's a lot of discussions going on with DTE and
Nothing, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
nothing
there's
on my
always
end, at
things
least.
that there could be, you know, and we're always looking at different options. But like Chris mentioned, you know, again, we do have our city climate action millage, which does bring in about 7 million per year, which is really helpful for a lot of the different work that we are doing. If you were looking at council last week, we are getting a 10.7 million from the federal government that's currently untouched, and that will be to doing some of the city's geothermal work there. So, you know, as with everything, you know, with the overall cost of everything, more money would always be great. But I think we do have some good resources in place, and we have the ability to capitalize on more that can be beneficial as well. So the answer will always be yes. It'd be great if we had more, but you know, on specific things, like for the most part, we tend to be doing pretty good on them. And when we do identify needs, we've been pretty adept at being able to find additional financial commitments for them.
cool. That's great to hear. Thank you.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. My question has to do, it's related to what you were just talking about, and that is, what do you see as the priorities for the coming year and into the next 2 to 3 years that needs attention from the community and OSI itself? What are the priority tasks to help continue the trend that you outlined for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I kind of laid out in the presentation how our emissions are broken out, and most of our emissions are coming from the building sector and the transportation sector. So programs in those areas is where we really want to be expanding on. And particularly with the SEU and creating more renewable power. Even in our A20 plan, we show a pretty sharp drop once we achieve that 100% renewable energy goal. So that's one that we're really going to be running at hard, is achieving that 100% renewable energy goal. But just kind of generally any programs in the transportation and building sector areas are ones that we're hoping to continue to ramp up as we work towards achieving our 2030 goals.
Mhm. And can you comment on the scope 3 emissions that our public speaker raised?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do account for some scope 3 emissions currently in our inventory. We account for waste that is taken out of the city of Ann Arbor's boundary. And commuting is also a scope 3 emissions category. So we do account for some scope 3 emissions, but we don't account for all of them. One thing that we're looking to expand on is in our dashboard. We want to include more circularity metrics. Recently, our circular economy team, or our circularity team, which includes the circular economy, food, and natural systems, our team is kind of expanded there. So we want to make sure that we're including more metrics around their work and tracking success there. So we're going to be working on expanding our dashboard in that area. We're also looking into a scope 3 inventory and considering if that's something that we'll pursue as well.
Mhm. Okay. And are there any among those that you consider low-hanging fruit in terms of like a cost benefit approach to assessing them? Like something that would give a large decrease in emissions for the lowest cost?
I mean, I think all of the things that we're kind of working on in the circularity landscape are some of those lower hanging fruits. So, transitioning to more plant-forward diets and creating a more circular economy where things are reused instead of, recycled or thrown away. So things like that are
Mm,
are lower
okay.
hanging fruit for sure.
And what about energy efficiencies efforts?
Yeah. Do you mean just like things that we're doing or low
Yeah,
hanging
I
fruit
mean, just
for
as,
people?
I mean, I consider that to be kind of a low-hanging fruit kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. We do have a lot of programs aimed at energy efficiency in buildings. Um, Joe right now is working on kind of renter education around those low-hanging fruit things, to make sure that people know about how to increase energy efficiency in both their homes and their apartments. Um, so that's kind of one of the things that we're working towards. Um, but yeah, in terms of like specific recommendations, that's something that we're working on building out, is creating material that will kind of go over those recommendations.
Thank you.
One thing I'll note too is for every year, I know the energy commissioners or former energy commissioners might be a little more familiar because we've done a presentation each year, but we do an annual report for A20, which says all of the things that we did in the past year. And then at the end of it, we also do have a priority list for what we're doing in the upcoming year. So I'll make sure to send that out to folks so you can see that as well, because it definitely, we recently did a strategic planning exercise. We looked at all of the things we're working on, and we're working on like 90 different strategies. So we're working on many things, but that one just kind of lists some of our more top priorities that we're really focusing on the upcoming year. Not to say we're not focusing on the other ones, but it's a good resource to check out if you're looking to see what we're thinking of doing in the upcoming year, in addition to what we did in the past year.
Are there other questions? Anybody else? Oh, Anya, you have your hand raised. Sorry. Couldn't
No,
see.
you're okay. Thanks.
Mm.
Yeah, you said that there is interest in potentially exploring doing a scope 3 specific inventory, which is a big project for sure. Um, has there been any preliminary conversations around what scope 3 areas might be focused on? Since, there's, depending how you could count them, there could be, you know, 15, 16, 17 different areas. So
Yeah.
have there been any idea about where you might focus some of those based on, what levers you might be able to pull to have some of that impact and get some getting the data is very difficult. That's, especially around like capital goods and purchase goods. So I'm just curious where those conversations have started.
Yeah, it is very difficult to get data for a scope 3 emissions inventory. We're in pretty early stages of exploring that and figuring out if it's something that we can do and if it makes sense for us to do and would provide additional information that's helpful. So we haven't specifically looked into what we might account for because we're in kind of that early stage and trying to decide just if it's something that we will pursue.
Are there other questions? Steve, you had your hand up for a second. You still have a question?
Yeah, that's what Annie asked.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, thank you, Carissa, for the presentation. It was very informative.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
And let me know
appreciate it.
if you have any questions as you look through things. I'm happy to answer any that come up.
Okay, I think next on the agenda is working group updates. And I just want to say, I know it's somewhat premature for working groups, but going forward, we'll probably have the working groups report out every other month, like 2 or 3 one month and the other ones the following month, just to give plenty of time for conversation with the other Sustainability Commission members. And we want to make sure we do a report out in enough detail to keep the public informed about what we're doing in the working groups and not just, we had a meeting on this date type thing and move on. So first one is building decarbonization. I don't know, have we had a working group, Joe?
We had the first preliminary meeting. We didn't establish someone who wants to report out. If anyone would like to share.
I can just note that we had a good first meeting. We heard from Julie Roth in addition to Joe from OSI about the ongoing activities under OSI, and then they've been doing a lot of research about what other municipalities across the country are doing to try to get at commercial building decarbonization, and thinking through what might make sense here. And kind of next steps are that sounds like staff is going to put together their literature review and compilation of everything they found, and working group members will be reviewing, adding to that. Other folks, please add to what I missed.
And
I
Joe,
think you
could you
covered
add
pretty
me?
much a lot of what we talked about.
Yeah, I had you on the list. I sent out a meeting poll. I didn't get a response there, but I'll make sure to get you looped in there. So yeah, I had you on there, but I will make extra close effort.
Yeah, I didn't see that. So
okay, I'll follow up there. Figure out where that went missing.
okay, next is circular economy. which is reusable containers. Was there a meeting?
I believe they are looking to schedule their first meeting towards the end of the month, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
You're correct. We haven't met yet.
And also Olivia Smith offered to be on that working group also. Environmental Services Framework.
Yeah, that one, I will need to do a little more internal work before I schedule the first meeting. So that one's to be determined on our first meeting date.
Okay. And sidewalk gap filling. Oh,
We had a meeting last week with members of the Transportation Commission and talked about just some general framework for addressing the sidewalk gaps and how to communicate, I guess, more with the community. And at this point, we don't have anything to share with the group, but we have a start. And thanks, Erin, for getting us going on that. Anyone want to add to?
Chris, you have a question?
No, I'm just sorry to miss the meeting on Wednesday. On Monday, I was traveling and couldn't get into a Teams meeting on my phone. There's some significant issues I'd like to raise that I wasn't able to do so. I will do them at the next meeting rather than here.
Water quality.
Aaron, I don't know if you want to go or you want me to go.
Go ahead.
So we haven't had a formal meeting yet, coming up, I believe, in 2 weeks. And we're just kind of getting our head around who all we want in the group and considering sending out some invites to some other folks. So early stages, but we're getting there. That's all.
Yeah, we had some folks that have a busy field season that's wrapping up, and so we wanted to be sure to include those particular folks when they have more availability. Stay tuned.
Any questions from anyone on the working groups before we move on to the next topic on the agenda? Okay, next, I think, is our staff update.
Yeah, I provided a written update. Yeah, folks can feel free to go through that. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask them now.
Where does one
yes,
find that?
Rita.
Where does one find that?
Oh, it is in the agenda. There's a link in the agenda, the physical agenda.
Oh.
I can go ahead and share my screen. I do have it pulled up.
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, Joe can go ahead and jump in on any of these. The bulk of these are going to be updates from OSI. The first one, so the city was awarded another grant to advance the SEU for $250,000, which is great news. Solar that project actually may be completed. So they were installing solar on the top of City Hall, which is exciting. The Ann Arbor, we were previously monitoring air quality, but there's it looks like a new tool or app to provide more detail around air quality monitoring. So you can check out that link. There's different sensors. Oh, looks like there's some questions. I see Commissioner Mitchell.
Sorry, I was gonna hold until after you go through. That's fine.
Oh, okay.
I had my hand up earlier.
There's an update about business rebates for electric leaf blowers through September 30th. There's a cool little plug for OSI making national news. And let's see, is this the one from, on the BBC? I know Missy was also recently interviewed by Kai Risdal, which is pretty exciting. An upcoming monthly clothing swap for this week, 4 to 6 in council chambers. And then final update from OSI is the Sustainability and Cinema Film Festival for October 22nd. And they'll be showing Fashion Reimagined. You can go to that link and check it out. And then from Public Services, there will be Public Works will be having their open house on October 25th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So that's when they have all the trucks for folks can get inside the trucks and look at all the cool equipment. It's a really fun event. So Joe, what did I miss on OSI updates there?
I think you got it all. Yeah, like you said, the air quality one, like Aaron mentioned, we've been tracking that, but we now have like a live updating map that people can take advantage of. It also has email alerts. So especially if you're someone who has certain sensitivities to air quality, that can be a good option for noting when the air quality reaches unhealthy levels. Yeah, like we mentioned, probably not relevant for most people here, but for anyone watching, or if you know anyone, we're continuing to offer rebates for electric leaf blowers to businesses. That'll be through next September, so September 2026. It was previously just a short stint of time that was available, but they'll now be available for at least the next year. So as companies are swapping over to electric, either, well, to comply with the ordinance that bans electric or gas leaf blowers during certain periods of the year, or just to have a more healthier and cleaner option, those are available. So those are everything else I think we got.
Rita, you have another question?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my question is just, this is in the area of where certain things come in a little bit of conflict. So while I totally support the idea of electric equipment to be used for landscaping, et cetera, I do have a concern about excess removal of leaves because we're in this period of time where it's really good to leave the leaves to support pollinators for their habitat. And so I think it would be worthwhile to consider a discussion on how to present that information. I did have a conversation earlier this year with Sean Reynolds about the Pollinator Aware Yard Care website, which currently leads with the leaf blower discussion or information about the leaf blower plan. And my concern is that from my perspective, in terms of kind of advocating for pollinator habitat, that's like what I prefer not to have as the lead item on that particular page, and for us to figure out a way to communicate how an absolutely stripped clean of leaves may be not so healthy for habitat for wildlife in general, not just pollinators. Thanks. So if I don't know how we can do a follow-up to that, but that's my request.
Yeah, thanks, Rita. I can follow, or Joe or myself, one of us can follow up with Sean on the inclusion of additional educational information. Yeah, thank you.
Aaron, can you include me in that conversation? I agree with what Rita is saying in terms of the importance of that going hand in hand with it. And I would love to do what I can to be supportive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Steve?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I was just wondering, what's the status of the Bryant geothermal project? Is there a goal or a timeline?
Yeah, like I was just mentioning last week, the council approved the authorization to accept the funds from the work, that 10.7 million from the DOE, and the timeline of the grant for that second phase for doing the installation is over the next 3 years. So as of right now, what we have to do once everything goes through, once we next meet with DOE and go through all that, the planning phase got us to like a 90% plan. So we have to finish that like final 10%, which includes things like surveying, topography, all that good stuff. And then since we are a public entity, we'll have to bid out for all of the work for the drilling and the installation. So we'll have to be writing and releasing RFPs over the next few months. So that way we can get all the different contractors aboard to begin doing the work.
Okay, and that grant isn't in jeopardy? so far?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, thank you.
One of the, I guess, fun things from the geothermal side is it's drilling, and this administration has been fond of drilling. So it tends to be a bit more favorable than some of the other technologies.
We'll just sell it as a fracking project.
Yeah.
Chris?
So I couldn't find a link to your report. Erin, maybe you can attach it when you send an invitation along with the agenda and the minutes. I don't really want to go to Legistar to get your report.
I can put a link in the chat
Yeah.
for you. I
I'm
can put a link in
talking
the
about future meetings, please.
Yeah, so I can just show real quick. So it's
Sorry,
in the,
going
I
forward.
attached the agenda to the, when I, at least 2 days before, I'll attach the agenda and a quick reminder. And it's, I'll just pull up the agenda and show you actually real quick.
Oh.
I think I have the agenda open.
So
I do. Yeah.
if I open the agenda, I can open its attachments.
You can click on
That's
the link in the
correct.
agenda and it'll open take you to the file.
Yeah, so it'll take you to the actual Legistar link. So here's today's agenda. I'm just scrolling down to the bottom for
So
the
these are
staff
live
updates.
links in here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
No,
Oh, I have a billion things open, but it'll take you to
thank
this,
you.
and then you can click on this link, and that's a live link.
This is new. Very good. Secondly, a live world update about leaf blowers. They still are not good enough to really move a lot of leaves when they get heavy in the fall. We're very grateful to be able to use our gas blowers this time of year. I don't know if we're going to get there by 2028 or whenever it is we can't use gas in the fall. It's going to be a problem. We are still lifting electric leaf blowers, the biggest ones that are considerably heavier than the biggest gas blowers. So they are really quite something to handle all day long in the fall. I don't know if that's going to get better or not. And of course, the gas blowers, even with 3 batteries, run about 45 minutes or an hour before needing to be recharged. So there's a significant expense in carrying enough batteries and or finding places to charge quickly enough. So we're not there yet, folks. Rita, we blow grass. We don't blow anything else. We completely get you, except for grass. Leaves can't stay on the grass in any kind of quantity. Thank you.
May I say, just let's have less grass.
I agree with that too. Thank you. It's hard to persuade people about that, however. We need a city program to start persuading people.
Any other comments on the staff update?
Nothing from me, but I realized that I forgot to include an agenda item for any council updates. So from our council members, I don't know if you wanted to include anything, but apologies for that. I'll include in future agendas.
You covered the big one, which was the approval of the grant. That was I'm not going to speak for Councilmember Malik, but that was what I had on my list just to share with the group. So
yeah, the only thing I'll add in addition to that is at the council meeting last week, we had the introduction of our 2 youth commissioners for the Sustainability Commission to be approved. So that would be Mobeen and Malika. I think I'm saying their names correctly. And I believe they will be on the next agenda. So that will be the 20th, October 20th city council meeting where we will vote to approve them formally. And that's it.
Okay. Next is our second public comment. Please call 877-853-5247 or 888-788-0099 and enter meeting ID 988-7619-2402. To raise your hand, press 9. To unmute, press *6. City staff will select callers who have raised their hand by using the last 3 digits of their phone numbers. Aaron, do we have any callers?
Yes. Caller 134, you can unmute.
Thank you, Aaron and Chair Curtis. Ken Garber again. Thanks to Ms. Ebling for the presentation and for addressing the questions I raised in my earlier public comment. I guess I'll take this opportunity to do some personal editorializing. I don't think we are going to hit our 2030 target for decarbonization or even come anywhere close. And the reason I say that is it just doesn't add up. While the SEU is a fantastic innovative program, even network geothermal and decarbonization of Bryant, one small neighborhood out of many in the city, won't be completed till near the end of the decade. The 100% renewable energy analysis by Five Lakes Energy that was delivered to the city in September 2023 estimated that the SEU at its peak could only reduce energy use in the city by a maximum of 10%. Yes, DTE in its IRP is pledging to drastically increase renewables, but they're showing no signs in terms of corporate decision making on reaching that goal by 2030, 50%. There's another IRP coming. DTE plans new gas plants, and data centers are proliferating, which they've lobbied for. And I don't see DTE reaching its targets. There are off ramps for its renewable energy portfolio, and they will probably be taking those. You were making some progress on building emissions, if you can believe the data that we heard tonight, but we continue to approve new construction that burns gas. 5 different hotels, very large structures, are in the planning or construction stage that will go online. They all burn gas or are planning to, and that will offset conversions that we may be making. As I mentioned before, transportation emissions continue to go up, both commuter and local. Yes, the 820 plan from 2020 did show a big drop in 2027, but that was due to community choice aggregation coming into effect at the state level. That's not going to be happening by all informed accounts, largely because of DTE and consumers lobbying. So unless we make a massive investment in RECs and offsets, which to me is not a real solution, I don't see us coming close to our 2030 goal at this point. This is not to reflect badly on OSI's programs, which are excellent. But I think we have to face the fact that we're going to fail on that goal, which is okay. But I think we have to be realistic and adjust our expectations and programs. Thank you.
Thank you. No other callers.
Okay. Does anybody have requests for next month's meeting? Topics for next month's meeting?
This isn't a topic, but I just wanted to clarify the next meeting on Legistar. It said November 11th, but on the calendar invite commissioners got it said November 18th. So I just wanted to double check on the date there.
Oh, I will need to update Legistar. It will be the 18th because the 11th is a holiday.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. And I'll note that we do have a speaker from Eagle tentatively scheduled for the 18th as well to discuss Gelman.
Thanks. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Does anybody else have anything they want to say beforehand? Okay. I saw Sarah Nedrich raise your hand for a motion. Is there a second? Anya Dale. Okay, I think we're done. See everybody next month.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to see everyone.
Enjoy the weather.
Bye. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks all.